when you take away your own country's ability to at least compete.
Yeah.
I don't think most people are looking for a handout in business. They just want to be able to compete.
Yeah.
Just let me be on the floor, but if you make it so that you hire two new employees, and that becomes, like you said, it becomes a liability. Well, of course you're not going to. You can't do it. You can't scale, and then your capital costs, and you're updating your equipment, and all that sort of thing, and then your property tax is going up, and then your gas prices are going up. All of a sudden, that new employee in that new facility, you can't. I mean, these companies are operating off. A company that runs on 5% profit is a really good company.
Mm-hmm.
There's not many of them out there.
And how are you supposed to grow your company?
How are you supposed to grow? Yeah.
And it's interesting.
More debt.
Yeah.
That's how it comes
well,
to it.
It's more debt, and actually, it's really interesting because once you start running a business and seeing what it is and trying to figure out how this whole system works that we have, we get taxed. At the end of the year, we end up having to pay a bunch of tax, and I look at that and I go, I could use that money. I could buy another piece of equipment. I could hire some more people. But what happens is we take that money and then we give it to the government, and then they're just like, oh, well, here, you can have it back as a tax incentive or as some kind of program, an export program or whatever. Is that really necessary? If you give it to a business and let the business keep it, then they can do that within their own organization. Yeah. So, you have to kind of leverage the whole thing. So if you're looking at expanding your business, take a look and see what kind of programs are available, especially a country like Canada where you get taxed so heavily. If you look hard enough, you'll most probably find some avenue to be able to get some kind of funding or grants or something to be able to, if you have a good plan, be able to move forward.
Yeah. And I think, there are a lot, and as we've learned all these programs and things. Sometimes, though, it's kind of like what you touched on, though. They're taking it as a tax and then they put it back in, whereas they could almost just get out of the way and let people just do it. And the problem is when you're competing against, like right to our neighbors to the south.
Yeah.
And again, people are competitive. It's part of the fun of being a business is competing. But when you have a state in the U.S. that goes, we don't do a sales tax, and we're going to do this, we're going to do a tax credit, and it skyrockets their manufacturing and all that, never mind all the other countries that are competing, you can't compete against that. No. When all of a sudden you're taking, I think the average Canadian, I might be wrong, I think the average Canadian pays about 44% of their income in tax by the time they're done paying all their taxes, everything from fuel to sales to income to.
I actually think it's higher than that, but
Probably is.
Well, that's the average. So that's even Canadians that are making $26,000 a year.
Yeah.
When it all averages out, and it might be 60%. I don't know, but that if people don't know because they're paying that when they buy fuel, they don't realize how much is getting taken. But if someone handed you $60,000 a year and said, okay, now we're going to take 30. Now live on that. People go, I can't live on that.
Well, that's what's happening now.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
It's just a slow bleed. People don't realize what's actually happening to them because they're paying it off piece by piece by piece.
And then the government comes out and says, oh, here's $500.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yay.
I'm voting for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this is a personal thing that there was this first-time home buyers thing where they match, what is it? They match up to 5% of your income.
Yeah.
Or to 5% of your down payment. But whereas the bank might look at 5 years of income, this program, it's based on your 4 years previous income. Mm. Well, most people aren't buying a house based on their 4 years previous. Yeah. They're based it because now they're, it's a couple, they're making some money.
Yeah.
They're not eligible. Nobody's eligible for this grant and then the people that are, let's say an accountant that's worked at that same job for 4 or 5 years. Well, he already bought a house.
Yeah.
So he's not going to use the program.
Yeah.
So it's a false. It really is a false program.
And there's a lot of those out there.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks good. It looks good until you start looking at it and looking at the details of it.
Well, it's always the fine print that gets you.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is security too. If you've got an employee that goes and buys a house and does it, well, now they want to stay in that location, start a family there. If they're just renting and that, they have really no ties. If another place is a better option, they'll just move there. They'll
Yeah.
pack up and go.
Yeah.
Right? People move a lot, and part of it is because they don't have as much. They're not holding a property. They don't have value invested. If people are living in Kelowna, they're not sitting there invested in the city itself by
Yeah.
holding property. So why wouldn't you move?
Yeah.
It really is nothing there. So
And you could move forward with that in business. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
taking a look, and I can't believe I'm even thinking about this, but I look at it and I think if the status quo in government, our federal government, stays in place, and I'm honestly thinking of moving outside of Canada, like moving it out, and like I look at that and kind of go, wow, it's
sad.
you're driven to that type of thought,
Yeah.
that thought process. And it's because they've changed, the governments keep changing the rules, right? Like I started the business, so someday, I can grow a business and employ people, and I'll be able to retire one day. Well, when the government comes in and starts calling small business people, tax cheats and all this stuff, and paints every business with this, and then starts threatening to tax you and take 50% of you sell your business, you take 50%. Now all of a sudden, like, how can I or my family move forward and retire from a plan that we've invested 20, 25 years? We don't have pension plans. Government employees, civil servants, they have that.
Yeah.
We don't that. And you guys are business people.
Yeah.
So and that's these more uneducated, just people just aren't educated on what exactly goes on when you run a business. And yeah, it's I don't know. It's a challenge, and you have to look at it as a challenge, and
Yeah.
you have to kind of adapt. You look at British Columbia. I mean, even moving to say like Alberta, your tax rates and everything that's available there versus being in British Columbia. But I love British Columbia. I love Canada, and it's this extreme swings that we're seeing, and it just scares the crap
Yeah.
out of
It's
me.
really unfortunate
Yeah.
too, because Canada does have this advantage of there's there's laws within the country, so we have this unbelievably strong framework to work within. And then if you just took some of that pressure off, especially small businesses, because that's the other problem with those programs and grants and things like that. The person that's running a 3 to 5 person operation, if you got 200 employees, you can hire somebody to write all that and hire a lawyer, and that's not a big
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
But if you're just a small operation, you can't afford something like that. You can't spend 2 weeks dealing with a $20,000 grant and then miss out on your $50,000 sale. It can't. It's not practical.
And,
right?
and again, talking about employees, I mean, what is a business? A business are the people, right? Like IMT, it's our team, it's our people. We got great people, and we're really fortunate to have the people and that we do. But when we bring in new people, and if you get the wrong person, this has recently happened to me. You talk about wasting time. Workers' comp has a division called discriminatory action. It's a discriminatory action. So if somebody is forced to go into a confined space and they don't want to, then workers' comp looks after that. But it also goes to other aspects. We had an incident where the employee was 100% fraudulent. Like fraudulent. We had videotape of everything. They could have been nipped in the bud. But it's gone through. Now I have a legal aid. He has a legal aid, and it's going through. It's going through mediation, which we declined. Now it's in adjudication, and all of this cost is borne onto us. And I was told straight up, "You're guilty.
Yeah.
You're guilty. You have to prove yourself." And I'm going, but this guy's lying. Like, look at the video.
Yeah.
And you actually
Talk to the
by the
employees.
legal system, it's supposed to be the reverse, but not in
this.
No.
No. And here's the scary part: is if he was to find, and if they were to find in his favor, that's money that comes out of my business to cover him. So really, they're saying that the worst case scenario is you have to pay his salary till such time as he wants to go get another job. And I could expand on this. I could expand on
Wow.
this story just to show. But there's no recourse. So we're guilty. The employee comes in and lies through his teeth, right? He goes out there, and there's no recourse on him. I went and wrote letters. Like, I've got most probably close to 80 hours trying to defend IMT and this whole thing. 100% crap. And you go and you put that in there. There is no recourse. And I quoted the fraud. There's the fraud from workers' comp. I says, here it is. you guys should be charging this guy. You guys should be going after him,
Yeah.
especially on the discriminatory side. And they say no, there is
don't do
there
that.
is nothing. So any employee could come along and file anything they want, go up, and
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
if and I'm lucky, I had to get signed affidavits, I had to get witnesses, and from all of this stuff, it's just cost time and money. But to be able to put something in place where there is no recourse when somebody is, blatantly frauding the
Yeah.
system,
Mm-hmm.
how is that fair?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that goes back to looking at an employee. An employee is an asset. Without that asset, you can't do it. But when you start putting policies in place that doesn't equalize it out, you're going to have people take advantage of that situation.
Absolutely.
So now you look at employees and you go, is that guy going to be a fraudulent? Is he
Yeah.
going to defraud
Yeah.
our company? So now you look at him as a liability, and like that is so wrong.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.